Think about all the things you use daily without a second thought. The little conveniences, the game-changing inventions, the stuff that makes life easier, safer, or more fun. What if I told you that many of those wouldn't even exist without the genius of indigenous peoples? Long before Columbus reached the Americas, when he landed on the Caribbean islands in 1492, Native Americans created inventions that significantly shaped modern life. These weren't just small ideas. They were revolutionary. And once you see what they came up with, you'll never look at these everyday things the same way again. Here is a list of some 8 incredible inventions of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Food wasn't just about survival for the indigenous peoples of the Americas. It was an art form, a science, and a way of life. Nothing proves this better than the Three Sisters farming method, a technique so effective that modern agricultural scientists still study it today. Here's how it worked. Indigenous farmers planted corn, beans, and squash together in the same plot. At first glance, this might seem random, but it was pure genius. Each plant played a critical role. The corn shot up tall, providing a natural pole for the beans to climb. The beans, in turn, pulled nitrogen from the air and returned it to the soil, keeping it fertile for future crops. Meanwhile, the squash spread across the ground with broad, leafy vines, acting like a living mulch. It blocked weeds and kept the soil moist by preventing water from evaporating too quickly. The result? Stronger plants, bigger harvests, and healthier soil without the need for synthetic fertilizers or modern machinery. And this wasn't a short-term fix. Indigenous farmers perfected this technique over centuries, ensuring their lands remained fertile for generations. But the brilliance of the Three Sisters didn't stop at farming. It shaped entire cultures. Many indigenous nations, including the Haudenosaunee, Iroquois, Cherokee, and Pueblo, relied on this trio as dietary staples. The combination of perfectly balanced nutrients, corn for energy, beans for protein, and squash for essential vitamins. Even today, farmers and gardeners use variations of this method, proving that indigenous knowledge wasn't just effective for its time, it was timeless. Modern companion planting techniques owe a lot to the wisdom of the original cultivators of the Americas. So the next time you hear about sustainable farming or permaculture, remember that the indigenous peoples of the Americas mastered these techniques long before anyone else. Believe it or not, one of the most common pieces of modern furniture, the bunk bed, can be traced back to indigenous longhouses. That's right, long before kids were fighting over who got the top bunk, indigenous communities were already using multi-level sleeping arrangements for practical reasons.
The Haudenosaunee, Iroquois longhouse is a massive wooden structure stretching up to 100 feet long, housing multiple families under one roof. Space was a luxury. And with so many people sharing a communal home, stacking beds just made sense. Elevated sleeping platforms could fit more people inside while keeping the floor open for daily activities. But there was another brilliant reason for bunk-like sleeping structures: heat conservation. In colder months, warmth rises. By sleeping on the upper levels, people could stay warmer at night without needing extra firewood. Meanwhile, the lower levels offered a cooler sleeping area for the warmer months. This design was so practical that it influenced European settlers. When colonists arrived and saw how efficiently indigenous peoples used space, they took inspiration, eventually leading to modern bunk beds used in homes, military barracks, and even space-saving apartments today. So the next time you climb into a bunk bed, remember it wasn't just a clever furniture design. It was an indigenous innovation built on necessity, efficiency, and ingenuity. Before highways, railroads, and cars, there were canoes and kayaks. These weren't just boats, but masterpieces of engineering, perfected by indigenous peoples long before Europeans arrived. Whether navigating calm rivers, braving ocean waves, or hunting in icy waters, these vessels were built to handle everything. Canoes were the backbone of transportation for many indigenous nations. The Algonquin, Ojibwe, and other woodland tribes crafted lightweight birch bark canoes, ideal for weaving through North America's vast river systems. On the west coast, the Haida and Tlingit carved dugout canoes from massive cedar trees, sturdy enough to conquer the rough Pacific. These weren't simple boats, but lifelines, essential for trade, travel, fishing, and even warfare. Then there were kayaks, the sleek and agile hunting vessels of the Arctic. The Inuit, Aleut, and Yupik designed them to glide silently through frigid waters, perfect for sneaking up on prey. Built from driftwood or whalebone frames and covered in watertight animal skins, kayaks were light, fast, and nearly unsinkable. The brilliance of these watercraft lies in their design. Birch bark canoes were waterproof, easy to repair, and light enough to carry over land. Dugout canoes had deep hulls, allowing for massive cargo loads, and kayaks. They were so effective that their basic design remained unchanged for thousands of years. Even modern sports kayaks still follow the same principles. Whether paddling a canoe on a lazy summer afternoon or watching Olympic kayakers race at breakneck speeds, you're witnessing the legacy of indigenous innovation. If you've ever stepped outside on a bright, snowy day, you know how blinding the sunlight's reflection can be. Imagine dealing with that daily while hunting, traveling, or trying to survive in the Arctic. The indigenous peoples of the North had a solution thousands of years ago, and it's one of the earliest forms of sunglasses: snow goggles.
The Inuit and Yupik crafted these essential tools from bone, wood, or even walrus ivory, carefully carving narrow slits across the front. These slits weren't just for looks, they worked by blocking most of the reflected light, reducing glare, and preventing snow blindness. For people living in regions where the sun reflected off snow 24/7, this wasn't just a convenience, but a necessity. Snow blindness, caused by excessive UV exposure, could leave a person temporarily blind for days. The goggles allowed hunters and travelers to move safely across the frozen landscape without damaging their eyesight. What's even more impressive is how effective these designs were. Modern science proves that the narrow slits significantly reduce incoming light and enhance focus, similar to how pinhole cameras work. Today's ski goggles and polarized sunglasses owe much to this ancient indigenous invention. So while modern sunglasses rely on high-tech UV coatings and fancy materials, the first solution to snow blindness came from indigenous innovation, crafted with nature and ingenuity. Human societies have always prioritized infant care. Indigenous peoples of North America developed an early version of the baby bottle centuries ago. They crafted them using hollowed-out animal horns, gourds, or other natural materials, sometimes fitted with a soft, absorbent cloth at the tip to help control the liquid flow. These bottles were ingeniously designed to mimic the natural feeding process, allowing infants to be nourished even when their mothers were occupied with other tasks. Some groups, like the Iroquois and other eastern woodlands tribes, would fill these bottles with animal milk or nutrient-rich broths, ensuring that babies received the necessary sustenance. One of the most fascinating aspects of these indigenous baby bottles was their use of natural sterilization methods. Some tribes would boil or smoke the bottles to kill bacteria, an early recognition of the importance of sanitation. They also understood the value of using soft, chewable materials for infants, ensuring that feeding was safe and effective. This innovation wasn't limited to North America. In South America, indigenous communities used similar feeding techniques, utilizing natural materials to create functional and sustainable containers. These early designs directly influenced later developments in infant care, paving the way for modern baby bottles made from glass and plastic. Today, millions of parents rely on baby bottles. Still, few realize that indigenous peoples had already perfected the basic concept centuries ago. Their understanding of child nutrition, hygiene, and practicality ensured that infants were well-fed and healthy long before mass-produced bottles existed. Chocolate, a beloved delicacy worldwide, owes its origins to the indigenous peoples of the Americas, particularly the ancient civilizations of Mesoamerica. The journey of chocolate from a sacred beverage to a global confection is a testament to these early societies' rich cultural heritage and innovative spirit. The cacao tree, Theobroma cacao, is native to the Amazon rainforest. Evidence suggests that its domestication began over 5,000 years ago in present-day southeast Ecuador by the Mayo Chinchipe culture. From there, the knowledge and cultivation of cacao spread northward into Mesoamerica, encompassing regions of modern-day Mexico, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. The Olmec civilization, flourishing around 1500 BCE, is among the earliest known to have utilized cacao. Archaeological findings, such as pottery residues containing theobromine, a compound specific to cacao, indicate that the Olmecs consumed cocoa-based beverages, possibly for ritualistic purposes. Following the Olmecs, the Maya civilization further refined cacao cultivation and consumption. For the Maya, cacao was more than a food source. It held profound spiritual and societal significance. They believed that cacao was discovered by the gods in a sacred mountain, a myth reflecting its esteemed status. Cacao beans were used in various ceremonies, including marriage rituals and offerings to deities. The Maya prepared a beverage by roasting and grinding cacao seeds, mixing the paste with water, chili peppers, and other spices to create a frothy, bitter drink known as zocolotl. This drink was consumed during religious ceremonies and elite gatherings, symbolizing life and fertility. The Aztecs, who rose to prominence after the Maya, also highly regarded cacao. In Aztec society, cacao beans were so valuable that they were used as currency. Taxes and tributes were often paid in cacao. The Aztec elite consumed a version of the cacao beverage similar to the Maya, often flavored with vanilla, chili, and other spices. Emperor Moctezuma II was famously noted for consuming this beverage daily, believing it provided energy and vitality. The Aztecs also associated cacao with the god Quetzalcoatl, who, according to legend, bestowed the cacao tree upon humanity as a divine gift. The arrival of Spanish conquistadors in the early 16th century marked a significant turning point in the history of chocolate. Hernán Cortés and his men encountered the cacao beverage at the court of Moctezuma II in 1519. Initially unfamiliar with its bitter taste, the Spaniards soon recognized its potential value. They began to modify the beverage by adding sugar, cinnamon, and other spices to suit European palates. By the late 16th century, chocolate had been introduced to Spain, becoming a fashionable drink among the aristocracy. Its popularity spread throughout Europe, leading to the establishment of cacao plantations in colonies and the eventual evolution of chocolate into the sweet confection we know today. The transformation of chocolate from a sacred Mesoamerican beverage to a global commodity underscores the profound impact of indigenous cultures on world history. Their innovations in cultivating and processing cacao laid the foundation for an industry that delights millions around the globe.
The concept of zero, fundamental to modern mathematics and science, was independently developed by the Maya civilization of Mesoamerica. This intellectual achievement not only revolutionized their calendrical and numerical systems, but also stands as a testament to the advanced understanding of abstract concepts by indigenous peoples of the Americas. The Maya civilization reached its zenith between 250 and 900 CE and sophisticatedly understood mathematics and astronomy. The vigesimal, base 20 structure was central to their numerical system, which differed from the decimal, base 10 system today. Within this framework, the Maya developed a symbol representing zero, a shell-shaped glyph that functioned as a placeholder and numerical value. This innovation allowed for the accurate representation of large numbers and complex calculations, facilitating advancements in various fields. The introduction of zero as a placeholder was crucial for positional notation, enabling the Maya to express numbers precisely and perform arithmetic operations efficiently. For instance, in their long count calendar, which tracked extensive periods, zero allowed for the clear demarcation of cycles and dates. This calendrical system was integral to Maya society, governing agricultural activities, religious ceremonies, and historical record-keeping. The ability to calculate and predict astronomical events with remarkable accuracy further underscores the importance of zero in their mathematical toolkit. The philosophical implications of zero in Maya thought extended beyond mathematics. The concept symbolized both the absence and the potential for existence, reflecting cycles of creation and destruction inherent in their cosmology. The shell glyph representing zero was associated with fertility and the womb, embodying the idea of potentiality and rebirth. This duality highlights the depth of Maya intellectual traditions, where mathematical concepts were intertwined with spiritual and existential reflections. The independent development of zero by the Maya is particularly remarkable when considered alongside similar advancements in other parts of the world. While ancient civilizations such as the Babylonians and Indians also conceptualized zero, the Maya's version arose in isolation, demonstrating a unique and profound understanding of mathematics. Imagine trying to run a civilization without a calendar. I have no idea when to plant crops when the seasons change, or when your biggest festival is happening. Chaos, right? Well, the indigenous peoples of the Americas weren't about to let that happen. Long before Europeans brought their calendars, civilizations like the Maya, Aztecs, and various North American tribes had already developed incredibly advanced ways of tracking time.
The Maya were absolute geniuses when it came to calendars. They didn't settle for just one, they had three. The first was the Tzolk'in, a 260-day ritual calendar used to determine everything from religious ceremonies to the best days for battle. Then came the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar that worked like the modern Gregorian calendar, marking the passing of the seasons. And then, to show off, they combined the two into the calendar round, a 52-year mega cycle that kept everything running smoothly. When one cycle ended, they started over, like an ancient version of resetting your phone's clock, but with more significance. The Aztecs followed a similar system, using a 260-day Tonal Pohwali for religious purposes and a 365-day Shuf Pohwali for everyday life. But here's where things got wild. Every 52 years, they had a massive new fire ceremony where they extinguished all fires in the city, waited for the stars to align just right, and then reignited the flames to kick off a new cycle. If the stars didn't line up, they believed the world could end. No pressure, right? Meanwhile, indigenous groups in North America had their ways of keeping time. The Lakota people recorded history through winter counts. In this system, each year was represented by a memorable event drawn onto bison hides. Think of it as an ancient, more permanent Instagram story. Each symbol told a story, whether it was a great battle, a harsh winter, or a year of abundant food. The winter count keeper ensured the tribe remembered their past, passing down history through generations. The Cherokee took a different approach, using a lunar calendar with 13 moon cycles, each lasting 28 days. Since that only added to 364 days, they occasionally threw in an extra day to keep things in sync. Each moon had a name, like the harvest moon for gathering crops or the flower moon when wildflowers were in full bloom. And let's not forget the Anishinaabe, who had their moon-based calendar tied to nature's cycles. The maple sap boiling moon marked the perfect time to collect maple sap, while the rising moon signaled when it was time to harvest wild rice. It wasn't just about marking dates and syncing life with the natural world. These calendars weren't random. They were carefully crafted to align with the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. They helped people plan their lives, celebrate traditions, and predict the future. And given how advanced these systems were, it's a shame modern society doesn't follow them. Who wouldn't want a calendar named after the moon phases instead of another boring numbered month? Water guns might seem like a fun summer toy, but did you know that indigenous peoples in North America were way ahead? Before super soakers and backyard water fights, they had versions of water-spraying devices, except they weren't just for play. These clever inventions were practical, sometimes even life-saving. Let's start with the Lakota people, who crafted early syringe-like water sprayers. These weren't made of plastic hollowed-out animal bones or carved-out wooden tubes. They were used to clean wounds, hydrate sick people, or even as part of healing rituals. Imagine using one of these in the middle of a dusty summer. Effective, but not the high-pressure splash battles we're used to today. Other indigenous communities found ways to use water in everyday tasks, eventually influencing modern designs. Some groups used squeeze-style water dispensers made from animal bladders or plant materials, allowing for controlled water flow. Need to douse a fire quickly? These were perfect. Need to keep kids entertained? If you give any child a water-filled pouch, things quickly get messy. Fast forward a few centuries, and the concept of pressurized water toys evolved. While indigenous peoples didn't invent the modern water gun, the basic idea of controlling and projecting water in a fun and practical way has roots in these early tools. They understood the physics of water pressure long before someone thought, hey, what if we turned this into a toy? The real game changer in modern water warfare came in the 1980s when NASA engineer Lonnie Johnson invented the Super Soaker. While Johnson wasn't indigenous, his creation shares the same ingenuity found in those early water-spraying devices. Using air pressure to create powerful bursts of water revolutionized summer fun. But if you look back at history, the idea of controlled water projection was already well established in indigenous cultures. So the next time you're in a backyard water fight, remember that the roots of your high-powered splash battle go way deeper than you think. Indigenous innovation paved the way for this technology, whether for healing, fire safety, or drenching your friends on a hot day.
And with that, we wrap up today's episode. Thank you for joining us once again. We hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you will be the first to see our new updates. See you in our next video.